The NBA draft has come and gone, and next up is free agency. But with the draft, I would say that that was Scott Perry's first test as the general manager of the Sacramento Kings. And I would say he passed with flying colors. This draft by Scott Perry reminds me a lot of the 2022 draft by Monte McNair, where Monte McNair had been on the job for a bit by then, so it's not exactly the same as Scott Perry. But in that 2022 draft class, Monte McNair was able to grab Keegan Murray and Keon Ellis, and he was able to grab Keon Ellis as an undrafted player, and that was something that I was very excited about at that time. And so that offseason was one of the peaks in terms of my and other Kings fans' confidence in Monte McNair because he did such a good job in that draft. And I get the same vibes from this draft. And that 2022 season also was an off season where the Kings were Summer League champions. Feels like the Kings are going to have a pretty good Summer League team this year because I think Scott Perry did very well in the draft, but he absolutely cannot stop at the draft. And the real test lies ahead. But I would say it's really easy when a new front office comes in or a front office that hasn't done anything to make me not believe in them yet, when they haven't made a ton of mistakes yet, and they have a draft like this one that brings in the good vibes. I was pretty down on this team coming into this offseason, and then one draft and all of a sudden I'm very happy. And it's like, should I be, should I swing that much the other way just because we had the 24th pick and the 42nd pick and, picked up some solid undrafted players? Probably not. But the draft is a time where we can all convince ourselves that we're going to draft these guys and sign undrafted players, and every single one of them is going to make an impact and become part of the rotation. And Summer League's a time where we can convince ourselves that 5 to 6 of these players on the roster are going to have a shot at actually making the Sacramento Kings roster and actually make an impact in the rotation. And I think that's a beautiful thing, even if it isn't realistic. But one of the big differences between the 2022 and what Monte McNair was dealing with back then and this draft for Scott Perry was Monte McNair had the 4th overall pick back then. The Kings jumped in the lottery, whereas Scott Perry is dealing with a situation that he didn't create, but where he doesn't have a first round pick. And I think he navigated it really well to be able to acquire a first round pick and to come away with 2 guys that honestly have first round talent in Nick Clifford and in Maxime Renaud. And he did it without giving away too much and without having a lottery pick. And also, it was just nice to see him make a second round pick. Monte McNair made a few second round picks, but he traded away quite a few. And we traded some for cash considerations. And you saw other teams moving down in the second round for cash consideration. So it was nice to see us just stay at number 42 and pick a guy who I think has very high upside, maybe for the first time since Neemias Queta in 2021. And so I think we're seeing that Scott Perry has a little bit of a type, but of course it's only one draft, but he got guys who are a little bit older, NBA ready guys who possibly can make an impact in the rotation this coming season. And in an interview after the draft, he mentioned that he liked guys that had a resume of work in college and who showed that season after season after season they could consistently improve. And so hopefully when they come into the NBA, they just keep on that trajectory and continue to improve and improve. He also mentioned he liked versatility, and you could definitely see that in Nick Clifford, a very versatile player. And he liked size with skill away from the basket. And that's definitely Maxime Renaud, a 7-footer with a 3-point shot, someone who has the possibility to be a very good big in a modern NBA setting. He also got guys that are good rebounders, have good feel for the game. And I feel like he backs up a lot of his identity talk in drafting dogs, drafting guys who are going to get after it defensively, especially in Nick Clifford, and also in the undrafted guys that he got in Dylan Cardwell, and in Isaac Noguez Gonzalez. And there are plenty of things that you can criticize Monte McNair and that front office for, but getting undrafted players was absolutely not one of them. And he was able to get Keon Ellis, Isaac Jones, Isaiah Crawford, all guys who are solid and who had, at the time of picking them up, potential of being NBA players with 3-and-D guys in the case of Keon Ellis and Isaiah Crawford. And, it's not guaranteed that Isaiah Crawford's going to work out, but still a wing with length and just a defensive guy that can knock down threes, and then a good defender as well, an athlete in Isaac Jones. And so I see a lot of similarities in especially Dylan Cardwell, 6'11", big man out of Auburn, who is just a beast on the defensive end. Can defend around the rim, can defend on the perimeter, and that's just someone who the Kings have really been looking for. They really need that big four. That's what they're looking for in Isaac Jones and hoping that he continues to develop. That's what they looked for in Jalen Slauson when they drafted him a while ago. It feels like we've gone through a million guys that just haven't really worked out in like Juan Toscano-Anderson or Chima Moneke, Chimeze Metu to some extent. But the Kings just got to continue to look for that, and I think Dylan Cardwell is a really good pickup and a guy who's going to be very fun on a two-way contract. I'm very excited to see him in Summer League. I'm excited to see all these guys in Summer League. It's a shame that we don't have the California Classic this year. That really sucks. But then you have Isaac Noguez Gonzalez, who at 21 years old was one of the youngest G Leaguers in history to be on the all-defensive team. Has like Jose Alvarado comps, and people have said that he's one of the best defenders at his size that people have seen. So I'm excited to see him. And then, I've already talked about Nick Clifford and Maxime Renaud, but I think getting Nick Clifford is super important because he's a guy on a rookie contract who can play on the wing and who possibly is going to come in and contribute right away, which is really important because we might lose Jake LaRavia in free agency, and just having a rookie that can come in right away just makes Scott Perry's job so much easier in free agency because the Kings do not have a lot of money to work with some of the money that they have tied up in their top guys. And so if he can come in and really make an impact, that would be a big deal. Same can be said for Renaud. It's interesting, Clifford, he's wearing the number 5. So I know some people are a little annoyed by that, him taking Fox's number. Me, I do not care at all about number stuff, but I know some people are a little pissed off. But I think it was meant to be for Nick Clifford to be on the Kings. He was wearing purple. Also, he had Clifford the Big Red Dog inside of his draft day jacket, which is amazing. And he was supposed to have a chain, a Clifford the Big Red Dog chain as well, that he ordered and just didn't get there in time. So that's hilarious. I love this guy already. And then you have a guy in Maxime Renaud who kind of has comparisons to a Quentin Post, a Santi Aldama, a Myers Leonard type of player, kind of a combination of those guys. It was said that Sacramento was his preferred destination. And so, that's interesting. It's like, why were we his preferred destination? Because we have 2 centers that are going to play in front of him, but he is a different type of center, and he's someone who can possibly play alongside those guys, play alongside Domantas Sabonis. Maybe Jonas Valanciunas is on his way out. Who knows? Is this a sign that Scott Perry has some good influence attracting that second rounder? And it was interesting, like hearing what Tim Connolly of the Minnesota Timberwolves had to say about the second round. The Timberwolves had the 31st overall pick, and they traded it because everyone in the second round has promises somewhere. Like the agents are trying to guide all their guys in the second round to certain teams. And I'm sure that's the case a lot in the first round as well, but especially in the second round now, it's kind of interesting. I wonder if at some point the second round just gets abolished because at this point, it doesn't even feel like a real draft anymore because everyone's just guiding their players to whatever place and situation is right for them, which I think is good, right? Especially coming in as a second round pick as opposed to a first round pick, you want to get guys who are really going to be in the right situations to succeed. And I do think that the Kings is a good situation for Maxime Renaud. Also, this guy's out here playing chess with Victor Wembanyama. I mean, all I'm seeing is that he's going to be the Kings' Victor Wembanyama. So I think the Kings got a lot of value out of this draft, got good value on guys that were projected to go higher than where the Kings picked them. They drafted different skill sets that the Kings needed. And I mean, coming in with 1 second-round pick and leaving with 2 guys with first-round grades in a lot of cases, plus a guy like Dylan Cardwell, who I think is a really solid guy to have on a 2-way contract. You know, I'm feeling that Summer League championship coming this summer. But now we have to look forward to free agency and beyond, because it's like, okay, you had a good draft. That's great. There's still a lot to be done for this team. There are questions around this team's top 4 players. Who's going to be here? Who isn't? I think the biggest thing this offseason that Scott Perry needs to do is he needs to try to trade 2 out of the 4 top players, whoever it may be, and try to get some value back. Because without that, it's just going to be so hard to make any meaningful improvements with the money, the limited money that is available for this team this offseason. So I don't think that this team has any chance of improving in a meaningful way by just going out and using the mid-level exception and signing some guys. And so that's going to be Scott Perry's big challenge. But when you look at the point guards that are rumored with the Kings, that's a big position of need, because the Kings did fill some other positions of need in the draft, with Nick Clifford on the wing, with Maxime Renaud at the center position. And if you want to look at Dylan Cardwell as someone who's filling something as well, he's filling an athletic big man, athletic 4. Of course, it would still be nice to have, an actual NBA athletic 4, and not just a guy who's on a 2-way, but still a good start there. And so at the point guard position, right now, the reports are that the Kings are the front runners for Dennis Schroder, at least if he leaves Detroit. He had a video come out where Schroder was pretty much just saying, like, he would love to stay in Detroit, but there's more to it than that, right? The money talks, and Detroit might go a different way, and he could get a bigger offer or whatever. And so the report was that the Kings could be offering the full mid-level exception, which is a little above $14 million. And so I like Dennis Schroder, and he is worth that amount of money. I'm just like, is he worth that amount of money to the Sacramento Kings? I like that he's a good defensive player at the point guard position. That's great. But we all know, like, he's better as a backup. And it's kind of like, what are you trying to accomplish if you are getting a guy like Dennis Schroder, or a guy like Russell Westbrook, who was rumored for the Kings as well, or a guy like Tyus Jones, or a guy like Ty Jerome? These are all possibilities. And, it's just like, what are you trying to accomplish? Because are you really going to be competitive with a point guard who is just going to be one of the worst starting point guards in the league? I mean, that's just the reality of the situation. These are all guys who are some of the best backups and some of the worst if they're starting point guards. And so you'd very much need to make moves around the team. Like I said, trading 2 of the top 4, even if you are bringing in a guy like Dennis Schroder on $14 million, he's an older stopgap point guard. And even if you get any of these point guards, like maybe Ty Jerome has a little bit of a higher ceiling, but I'm not the biggest Ty Jerome fan. Again, I think he's better off the bench. He's a great offensive player. He's not good defensively. He got played off the court in the playoffs. I don't expect him to be as bad as he was this past playoffs in future playoff scenarios, but you never know. And so the point guard situation is just the position where the Kings are in a lot of trouble, because there doesn't seem to be a path to getting a super great player. And if you are looking to trade for like a Trae Young, the Kings have already been said that they don't want Trae Young because of the contract he's going to demand, and because he can't defend. And then it's like, okay, what about a guy like Darius Garland? And with him, you're probably having to give up too much to get him. So it's a tough spot. And it's why the Kings are just in such a tough spot overall, because they don't have a young point guard really coming up, unless you see Devin Carter in that mold, which I really don't, because I think Devin Carter is more of an off-ball player. It feels like if you're signing one of these players, you're like heading towards another season of mediocrity. You're not really going to go anywhere with these type of point guard options, I don't think. But at the same time, I don't have a better answer. I don't think there is a better answer, so Scott Perry is just going to have to work some magic to get the Kings out of this tough spot. And so then you have the Kings being interested in Jonathan Kuminga. And while I'm not totally sold on Jonathan Kuminga as a player, I feel like he hasn't shown enough improvement throughout his time in the NBA, can't shoot the ball, has the physical tools as a defender, but hasn't been the best defender. He can play, off the ball without the ball being in his hands, but he wants to be a star. He wants to be paid like a star, $30 million. I question the fit with Domantas Sabonis. But at the same time, if the Kings make a swing for a high upside guy in Jonathan Kuminga, I would be happy, because it would show me that the Kings front office understands that to make this the current iteration of this team work, and to not just be stuck in mediocrity, they can't just come out, maybe make one kind of not so meaningful trade and sign a Dennis Schroder in free agency and think that all of a sudden the Kings are going to turn into a playoff team. You kind of have to take a high upside swing. And so while, again, I'm not the biggest fan of Jonathan Kuminga, it would show me that the Kings are really trying to make something happen and not just sitting here and accepting mediocrity, even though it could turn into mediocrity anyways, and it could turn into a bad contract for Jonathan Kuminga. When the Kings' name was first thrown out with Jonathan Kuminga, it felt like it was just because the Kings had a little bit of interest, but like it wasn't really going to happen. But then this past day, it feels like the interest has maybe ramped up, and maybe it has more to do with other teams like the Nets dropping out of the race for Kuminga. And so that's just limiting the Warriors' options and Kuminga's options. So I don't know how likely it is that the Kings are actually going to go after Kuminga and get him. But if they were to, I mean, you're possibly looking at a sign and trade for Malik Monk. And so the one thing I would like about that would be that the Kings are getting that athletic, high upside forward. I mean, the Kings have been looking for an athletic forward. They'd be getting off one of their guards and replacing him with a forward. I think there are fit concerns, but at least you're getting an athletic forward, and that's what you've been needing. The other things that the Kings have to be concerned with in free agency is the Keon Ellis situation. The deadline to pick up Keon's team option is on Sunday, and I, of course, do not want them to pick that up, because if they don't pick it up, he becomes a restricted free agent, and they can work out a long-term deal, which I think they have to do. You have to keep Keon Ellis here long-term. You just have to. And then you have Trey Lyles being a free agent, so got to work that out if you're keeping him or not. And then you have Jake LaRavia being a free agent and being limited to offer him about $5.2 million this upcoming season. I am very worried about if the Kings will be able to retain him, but I sure hope they do. And all we can do is hope at this point with LaRavia. But like I said, the biggest thing is, can they trade Malik Monk? Can they trade DeMar DeRozan and get real value for those guys? Or can they trade Zach LaVine or Domantas Sabonis if somehow that's a possibility in the route they want to go? But so far, the reporting has made it sound like there isn't that much of a market for either DeMar DeRozan or Malik Monk, which I feel like teams should be more interested in Malik Monk. But I understand that teams don't want a small guard who can't defend at $18 million per year. But if the Kings were to trade him for not a lot of value, it would hurt pretty badly, because I mean, we all love Malik Monk, and he's a great player, and we can just all be mad at Monte McNair and Vivek Ranadive and whatever for trading for Zach LaVine and making Malik Monk the odd man out, because it sucks. I don't want the Kings to have to trade Malik Monk, but it's where we're at right now. So Scott Perry had, a great draft, but the real hard work starts in free agency. I mean, it's going to be it's not a good situation for Scott Perry this offseason. If the Kings just do nothing and ride out this season, maybe it'll get a little easier next offseason or at the trade deadline. But I'm not that patient, and I know other people are even less patient than me and want things to happen now. I'm sure ownership wants things to happen now, and I'm sure Scott Perry himself in this front office want things to happen now and want to make moves to be able to win this season. So I know this is early in Scott Perry's tenure, but man, this is a massive test for him. But hopefully he's able to make the right moves. When he does, I will be right back here to talk about him, probably on Monday after things go down. Some things have already been going down throughout the day. Sam Merrill got his contract with the Cavs, Kings legend, part of that 2022 Summer League Champions team, I believe. And then you had Colby Jones getting traded. So Kings legends flying around. He also got waived after he got traded. So unfortunate for him. And then you also had Davion Mitchell signing a 2-year, $24 million deal with the Heat. So happy for him that he got his deal. But yeah, that is it for this episode of the Roll Report. Like I said, probably be back on Monday after things go down, or just whenever there's news for the Kings. I will be right back here. So I will see you guys then. Peace.